Hey folks, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, in today's episode, we are taking a look at artist trading cards. And specifically, we're taking a look at trading cards created by artists who contributed to fantasy and science fiction art. And this is a surprisingly affordable sub hobby to get into. And I say sub hobby because they are tangentially related to a lot of the things we love on the Dungeon Dive. And I do have some books over here to show that a lot of these, of course, have been used as book covers. I don't have all of my books that correspond to the cards because it would be many hundreds. But this is a really fun hobby to get into, and you can actually use these in some of your games. You can use the cards to maybe inspire encounters or to have inspire random encounters in your solo game, your solo RPGs. But I like to just collect these to look at them because I like the art and I like a lot of what these artists have contributed to the fields of science fiction and fantasy fiction. Now, when a few years ago, I wanted to start getting into collecting these, and I was under the impression that this would be a kind of expensive little sub hobby to get into. But when I checked the prices on eBay, and that's where I have purchased everything that you'll see today, I was really surprised by how affordable this little sub hobby is. You can pick up a complete set like the Mike Plug set here. You can pick up a complete set for like $15 to $40, and there's usually about 90 cards in each set. And as a matter of fact, I think the Frisetta set that we'll take a look at, I think the price on that has actually gone down since I purchased my set. And so if you want to get into these artist trading cards, it's a pretty easy and pretty affordable hobby to get into. I think the market for trading cards has kind of plummeted over the years, unless of course you are talking about collectible card games like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or especially Pokemon. I mean, those things are just ridiculous. It's kind of upsetting to me how much those things go for, because the art on those is often not very good, especially when compared to some of the great art on these. But I get it, it's a collectible game, and these were billed as being collectible, but they're really not. I just really like having them to look at. And I pull out my binder. So I have a whole binder here full of some sets, and then I have a few sets and a few cards that I still need to put in some pages, but that will have to go into a different binder. So the first pages here are dedicated to Michael Whan. Of course, Michael Whan did some of the best fantasy art of all time on this series, on this versions of the H.P. Lovecraft books. They use Michael Whan's art. Michael Whan did, I think, 12 different covers of the DAW Year's Best Horror and Year's Best Fantasy, I believe. And this one, of course, was edited by Carl Edward Wagner. And then Michael Whan also did some of the art for the C.J. Cherryh stuff, the Tree of Swords and Jewels. And then my favorite of all of Michael Whan's stuff, of course, is the original printings, the DAW versions of the Elric Saga. And that's why I bought these, because they do have that original Michael Whan art. But yeah, we're just going to kind of flip through these and take a look. So there's that one there, that cover there. Yeah, I love Michael Whan's art. It's very nostalgic, and a lot of this art, it appeals to me because of that nostalgia. I remember just being young and going into bookstores and comic book stores and seeing his art on covers. There's a Fafhrd and Grey Mouser cover there. And he also did, of course, some covers for some metal albums like Sepultura. I think there's a Sepultura cover in here. This one here is for a Tanith Lee book. I have a few Tanith Lee books that he did the covers for. There's that one, the Year's Best Horror, Series 10 here that he did. And I really want this one, but I haven't been able to find that at an affordable price. That was for another dog collection there. And of course, there is the cover he did for the Sepultura album there. And yeah, these are just really cool. I love looking at these. The cover for Heinlein's Friday, that particular cover there unlocked unlock some images in my young impressionable mind for sure. I remember seeing that cover at the library and just thinking, wow, that is a very attractive woman. But yeah, there's just all kinds of great art to look through. And yeah, you could use these to inspire your game, your solo RPG games. Maybe coming up with some random encounters or just some things to discover, or just use these images to inspire your world building or crafting your adventures, your stories. And each one of the sets does come with a checklist, so you can look at all of the cards here. Now, some of the most collectible things in these sets would be the alternate or the additional hologram cards. And those usually don't come in the sets when you buy a full set from eBay. I think those are the things that are worth the most money, but I'm not really concerned about collecting these for money. And I don't really like hologram cards because I find that the images are sometimes hard to see through the hologram. Okay, so that was the Michael Whan pages, and now we go into the Ken Kelly pages. Ken Kelly, the master of painting barbarians, and they used a lot of his images for some of Conan, so Hour of the Dragon, that's a Ken Kelly image there. I think that card is represented in some of these pages, in the People of the Black Circle and Red Nails. So these are the book club editions, and these are all edited by Carl Edward Wagner. But yeah, if you like barbarians and you want some images of big beefy men doing big barbaric things to inspire your games, then this Ken Kelly set would definitely be one for you. Now, I think my first introduction to Ken Kelly were the images that they used for the Horse Clan novels. And I read a bunch of the Horse Clan novels when I was young, and I really liked those. And I've been kind of wanting to revisit those, but I haven't. I'm wondering if they hold up. I might just want to keep those as part of my, keep them in my memory. Each of the cards will usually have a little quote or something about the art on the back. One of the things that I wish it did, and not all of them do, some of them do, is list the different places where that art was used, because some of this art was licensed out to additional things like games and books and that kind of thing. But for instance here, this is called Comrades, and this was used in Robert Adams' Horse Clan series. So here's a painting from the Robert Adams' Horse Clan series. The character portrayed is killed at the end of the story, so I decided I wanted a gloomy, eerie feel to it. A goodbye for this gentleman. I don't remember the character who is killed there. I'm pretty sure a heck of a lot of people are killed in those Horse Clan books. But yeah, Ken Kelly's art is really cool. I think I prefer his art over Boris Vallejo. It lacks that kind of, that overly 80s airbrush quality, but it still kind of focuses on that same physique style that Boris was known for. But I really like Ken Kelly, especially when it comes to barbarians. And he did some weird sports images, like these robot skeleton football players and this baseball player tossing a grenade there. That's pretty cool. And a few little science fiction images as well. Some kind of like ghoul with this hand cannon. Gulliver's Travels there. Some more robots. Pretty cool. But yeah, his art is pretty neat. Here's some of those Conan images that we saw on some of those books. And then there is the Ken Kelly checklist. And then here, of course, we have Larry Elmore. Fans of D&D, Dragonlance, the old Dragonlance novels will, of course, recognize a ton of these images and a ton of these characters. Now, Larry Elmore, he's definitely an artist that I appreciate on a nostalgic level and maybe not so much on a current level. A lot of his art is great. Some of his art just is a little cheesy for me. I like him. I appreciate him. I respect the hell out of Elmore. But he's an artist who I appreciated a lot more when I was younger. But I think some of his images are still great. The Icewind Dale, the Crystal Shards, man, I read that book so many times. That was one of my favorite trilogies growing up. Absolutely love those characters. Of course, his portrayal of Drist is kind of the ultimate betrayal. I think I kind of associate Drizzt and Elmore in the same way that I associate Elric with Wayland. For an old TSR artist, I actually prefer Clyde Caldwell, and I don't have his artistic card set yet, his artist card set yet, but I am thinking about buying one, and I've seen those go for about $30. The Clydewell set is on the more expensive side that I have seen. But if you just want a full blast of nostalgia to smack you upside the head, this Larry Elmore set would be one to get. And then after Elmore, so there's the Elmore checklist, we move into the king of ghouls, the king of zombies, the king of slimy creatures, and that is, of course, Bernie Wrightson. Nobody draws zombies like Bernie Wrightson drew zombies. These are so cool, and so many of the images in this set are of zombies and werewolves and monsters, and of course Swamp Thing. But man, his skin tone is so cool, and the ripply muscles, everything just feels really organic and slimy and grimy. Yeah, Bernie Wrightson is just incredible. Such a great author, or a great artist of horror images. And I think that was kind of one of his specialties, one of the things he was known for. But yeah, these are so great. I was really happy to get this Bernie Wrightson set, just because he has such a unique style. It's very cartoony, but it's still kind of grimy. It's still kind of gory. It's not silly cartoony. He uses that kind of a lot of color and a lot of kind of bulbous images in the same way that's kind of Sam Keith did, like with the Max. I think Sam Keith was pretty inspired by Bernie Wrightson. And then we move into one of the all-time greats, and that is Jeffrey Catherine Jones. So Jeffrey Catherine Jones, born Jeffrey Jones, and then he transitioned into to female. And now he's a she. So Jeffrey Catherine Jones, their art is awesome. And do I have, I've got a bunch of the drawings that they did, but this one here is for Fritz Lieber's, for, of course, Swords Against Death, the second in the Fafhrd and Grey Mouser series. But Jones's art is so painterly, and it's a little more abstract than something like Bernie Wrightson or something like Frisetta. More, not so much concerned about the details, but concerned more about, I would say, the mood and the atmosphere. There is the cover that was used for The Shadow People, Margaret St. Clair's The Shadow People, the weirdest book on Appendix N, and an image that has absolutely nothing to do with what is going on in the book. I think they just liked that image and licensed it, because that is one weird book. But yeah, oh man, these are so great. I think that was used, I believe, for a Jack Vance novel there. I believe that's what that's from. Or I believe that the Vance novel used that image. But again, a lot of these, that's Kothar, I believe. A lot of these images, they weren't drawn specifically for a specific book cover. They were just drawn as a fantasy image. And then the publisher would buy the rights to use that image to entice people like me into buying the books. And I know a lot of people have issues with the cover not exactly matching up with what's in the book, but that doesn't really bother me, because a lot of the books I buy and collect, I buy them for that cover image. And that cover image to me has value that is completely separate from the words. And then I do have a few more of the Jeffrey Catherine Jones cards here. I need to get into a binder. I ran out of pages. But here is the Jones checklist. And as you can see, there are these holograms. So there were 3 holograms in this set, but I don't have any of the holograms. But here are some more of her images. Ah, man. Just so beautiful. I believe that was used for a Peter Saxon novel, I believe. One of those kind of satanic occult novels. I think that Rathburn something, I can't remember, but yeah. A lot of these I do have the books for. Oh man, that thing is just amazing. Her use of color and composition, I think, really does stand kind of heads and shoulders above a lot of her contemporaries. She felt like, I think her art feels a little more classical, and she just kind of chose to work in a fantastic and weird tradition. I mean, just look at that. That is a gorgeous painting. I've never seen any of these images in their proper size. I don't know where these original images exist. I don't know if they're in a museum somewhere, but man, I would love to see that. Is that Branmock Morn, I believe there, that was used for some Robert E. Howard stories. The wolves, the vultures of Wahpeton. So that was used for a Howard there. But I would love to see some original Jeffrey Catherine Jones paintings in person, just to see how big they are, because I have no idea. I have no idea the size that a lot of these artists work with. But after Jeffrey Catherine Jones, of course, we move into the late, great, the unparalleled Frank Frisetta. Just, man, there's nothing left to say about Frank Frisetta. His art launched 1,000 imitators. His art launched the imaginations of thousands of gamers and readers, and it still just really does stand alone. I believe that this is one of the most expensive, popular, modern paintings that ever sold. I think that was the Egyptian Queen. I don't know. I remember that thing selling for a lot. I remember it being a really big deal when the original of that sold for like millions of dollars or something. But I understand it, man. Frisetta is, yeah, there's a reason why people talk about Frisetta in the way that I am trying to talk about Frisetta right now, but words are failing me just because everything that has been said has been said. There is a Cain there. But man, when he would get just really weird, and you could just feel his art has such a tangible quality. I know it's been said before, but nobody drew flesh like Frisetta. The flesh that Frisetta drew and painted just feels so real. And yeah, just amazing, amazing art. So there is the Frisetta checklist. And then we also have, so kind of related to Bernie Wrightson, another artist who does really cool kind of horror images and kind of gruesome images, is Mike Ploog. And this Mike Ploog set is really cool. And like Bernie Wrightson, he has a much more kind of cartoony style, but it still feels gruesome and gross. Oh man, that's one of my favorite images right there. The Wraith. The Dark Lord called upon the lifeless shells of evil soldiers emerge from the depths of hell. So yeah, a lot of these really could be used to inspire solo games. If you're just looking for something to inspire an adventure or a quest or some kind of random encounter, I mean, you drew that, and who's this guy hanging out in some dark tavern, and how do you deal with him? Or this whole kind of action scene there. Super, super cool. Mike Ploog's art was really great. I don't see his art used in a lot of covers. I don't know if I have a single book with a Mike Ploog cover. For some reason, his art just wasn't really licensed out. I'm sure there are some books that have Ploog art on them, but I don't think that I own any. Looking through these cards, I don't see anything that comes to mind, any books that I own. So I think his art was mainly used in magazines and comic books, and probably some gaming. I do recognize some of these from some gaming. These little gnomes there, that's super cool. This guy, kind of like, what is that, Rasputin or something? Yeah, Rip Van Winkle. It was some kind of hag. Oh man, that's a great image of that centaur. Another centaur, some kind of crazy werewolf creature. Yeah, really, really cool. Mike Ploog's art is great. And then I think the last set that I currently own. So yeah, it is weird that these just aren't valuable, and I appreciate that. Like I said, I don't buy these for their value in money. I buy them for their value in art and the value that they add to my life. But this last set I have is Whan, and their art is super cool. There is the checklist, and there is a book that uses an image from Whan, The Web of the Spider by Andrew Offutt and Richard Lyon. And this is the final volume in the War of Wizards trilogy. But let's just take a look through here. Now, Rowena's art does kind of remind me of a mix between Vallejo, and Michael Whelan. It's kind of a perfect mix between that, maybe with also a little bit of Larry Elmore mixed in. But a lot of their art I do recognize from book covers. Some robot monks there, that's super cool. But yeah, every once in a while, I will just pick up some of these pages, pick up my binder, or pick up these decks of cards, and just kind of thumb through the cards. And if I'm, wanting some inspiration or just wanting to see some neat images. I believe that this cover here was also used in this series there. I think that's from the first book in that series. Oh, this was from a Theodore Sturgeon novel. Yeah, The Dreaming Jewels. The Dreaming Jewels was also known as, man, my mind just blanked, but it has had a couple of different titles there. But Theodore Sturgeon, just one of my top 10 favorite science fiction authors of all time, and The Dreaming Jewels is excellent. What a book. So, oh man, it is so good. It's so kind of dark and twisted in the same way that a creepy kind of Ray Bradbury book is. But Rowena's art is great. I don't hear their name mentioned very much, but when I look at these images, I am just reminded. That was used for a Philip K. Dick, I believe, Radio Free Albemuth, for the book club edition. Some baby floating in space, one of his kind of religious science fiction novels. I looked at the work of Rubens, one of my favorite artists, for inspiration in painting the baby's flesh. So see, it is interesting that they don't mention who licensed this particular image to be used. But I'm pretty sure that's from Radio Free Albemuth, the book club edition from Philip K. Dick. One of his books that is tangentially related to kind of Valis and the divine invasion. I think it was kind of like a rough draft of Valis. I think Radio Free Albemuth eventually became Valis or something like that. There are a lot of similarities between those two novels. Some kind of a space warrior there. It always is funny when a artist who typically focuses on fantasy will take that kind of same fantastic iconography and style and then apply it to outer space. Because I don't think if you were in outer space, I don't think you would be going bare-chested in outer space. I don't know. Seems kind of dangerous. Oh yeah, and a snowman lounging with a woman in a bikini listening to a boombox. As you do. Some kind of a pirate drummer there. But yeah, if you want to get into these, you can do so. And it's a really nice, affordable hobby. And I was surprised by how affordable this was. And that's why I bought so many. I think I got into these during the pandemic years. And it was kind of just another way to escape from reality. And it's a really quick escape from reality because you don't have to read anything. You can just pick these up and thumb through them and have a nice nostalgic time. Maybe remembering the first time you saw certain images or remembering the books that were associated with them. As soon as I see this, I'm reminded of a vacation my family took. And on that vacation, right before we went on vacation, I went and bought The Crystal Shard and I started reading it in the car, and I'm pretty sure I finished it something like 2 days into the week-long vacation. And so I convinced my parents to wherever we were, maybe it was Santa Barbara or something, we were going to the beach or something, and I convinced my parents to take me to a nearby mall to go into either a Walden or B. Dalton Books so I could buy parts 2 and 3. And man, I absolutely devoured the Icewind Dale trilogy. So, all right, well, I hope you enjoyed this brief look at the artistic trading cards, kind of a tangentially related hobby to a lot of the things that we love on the Dungeon Dive. And we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.